Hi, my name is Jill. This is Road Culture Rules. We're outside. It's a little bit cold, but today I want to talk about the next step. Not just RV versus tiny house, but what about a hybrid or the next generation? I think it's what's coming, at least to some of you. So we're going to talk about that briefly because I'm super chilly, and I'm going to take a deep breath, hold for 4, exhale, and see you on the other side. One of the ways these videos get supported are by a few books that I've written, which have nothing to do with the videos themselves. They're based on what I've learned with 20 plus years as being a social worker. Why let it all go to waste, right? For anyone over 50 or a caretaker, this is stuff you just need to know. Not fun, but necessary. You'll find the link below. I will say thank you, and the more books I sell, the faster I'll be back on the road. So I made another video about all the things I've learned in the last 5 years. It's been another year, and as you know, I'm sort of evolving all of this into what I'm calling my next generation, which is the horse trailer. I know, someday we will actually be building it. But the more I thought about it, the more I'm really thinking about it as this next generation, kind of a hybrid model. So I thought I'd look online and see what other people are doing. And the word hybrid for tiny house and RV, it's starting to be integrated into this whole community of mobile living, or road culture kind of living is what I'm calling it. But I like this idea of a hybrid version of a house, because right now you've got RVs that are really about recreation, and if you've ever lived in one, the layout is less than optimum, and it's not really suited to a long-term living situation. And if you've ever lived in a tiny house, the first thing you'll notice is you don't want to be driving that around very often. There's no aerodynamic quality to it at all in terms of traversing more than just one trip, hopefully, in its lifetime. But there's got to be something in the middle, and I think we're starting to see that evolve with the inside of RVs and trailers, like I want to do in here, looking more like a house, but still with the ability to travel, maybe not in a high mobility type of environment, but in a way that it's more like a house in terms of stronger insulation, better layout, better use of space, but also the externals got more of an aerodynamic quality to it. So if you really want to know just some basic stuff about RV, tiny house, travel trailer, van kind of a thing, you can check out that video. I'll have the link below. But right now, I just wanted to pop that seed into your mind and talk about a couple things to start thinking about in terms of maybe a hybrid or next generation model. So one of the first things I notice is a lot of these new ones have a lot of glass, and they're really physically still designed to be permanently parked. There's something called a park model, which is also part of that mobile home version, where you really were only going to travel with it once. Pretty big, not aerodynamic. But a lot of glass, maybe not a good idea. Number one, you got to keep it clean. Number two, you're much more vulnerable to the elements in terms of lots of sun, or if it's cold, a lot of cold coming in through. And I'm not sure how well a lot of glass is going to travel, especially if it's full panel. So that's one of the mistakes I see in terms of this hybrid model sort of evolving in terms of its current idea. The next is the lack of the aerodynamic part of it. Still very angular, still very structured externally, like a box. And you know, if you've ever tried to live in an Airstream or remodel an Airstream, that curved structure is pretty difficult in terms of molding wood or building around that. But the aerodynamic component is really important if you're going to travel more than once. The next thing I think that we really need to factor into this hybrid idea is energy source and water source. And you know, with the off-grid stuff now, solar, you can do so much more with your energy. Water is still the big issue, and the traditional model of a great big water tank it's an option, but again, it impacts your mobility idea. So I think that how we get water and bring it into our system is something else that needs to kind of evolve. What I'm talking about here are not definitive ideas, but really trying to plant seeds, because this is a next generation idea. You've already spent some time traveling. You know kind of what you want. You know what your goals are. these are really just things to take it one step further, because I think there's a lot of future in all of this. Another big issue that I see with a lot of these hybrid models coming out is that there's not a good eye for security and privacy. Part of the beauty of living out in the middle of nowhere, or parking out in the middle of nowhere, is you do have a lot of privacy, but that may not always be the case. And so if you want to have privacy, you really need to rethink your window door structure. You know, letting light in is very important in terms of keeping warm, but when you're lit up at night, everybody else can see you, so that's something else to think about. And as security becomes more of an issue, you're going to want to be able to think about how you're leaking light to the outside world. So there's no 100% way to do that, but I would encourage you to factor that into your hybrid idea about how much security you want, and if you're going to be in a dark place, do you really want to be the one beacon of light? Hey, why don't you come rob me? I think one of the other things in this sort of next generation idea is, are you going to live alone, or are you going to bring somebody else into the mix? Not just animals, but a second or third person or fourth person, family. Really changes the dynamics of how you want to structure that. So just something else to think about, short-term, long-term, in terms of how you want to set that up, your sleeping space, your storage space, your bathroom space, whole separate issue. Just something to think about. The next thing I think that will be part of this next generation hybrid idea is how we build community. Right now there's a lot of legal issues around any kind of permanent tiny house community. There's actually been a vote in Albuquerque, or north of Albuquerque, I may go check that out, but still a lot of issues around the legality of that, other than a traditional classification as an RV park or maybe a hotel motel. So I think community of smaller living structures is part of the future. I think that there are still a lot of issues around that. So being able to stay classified as more of an RV trailer type of unit is going to give you a lot more flexibility in terms of if you want to do more permanent or long-term kind of parking situations. The next thing I would throw in, because so many of you are my age, is that you really want to factor in the aging options. And so, you know, things like lofts accessible with ladders, just not a good idea. Not that we don't want to stay limber and very able to climb, but to look at it in terms of steps, slippery floors, loose rugs, being able to grab onto the sides, how you're going to be bathing, things like that. Really important to factor into the sort of next generation model if you want to age into it. So many of us buy these RVs or vans thinking, you know, I'm going to be young and limber forever. But I think this next generation is really going to be more of a long-term option. So you want to put in more durability, more long-term living kind of situation. So you want sturdier stuff, which will affect the weight. But also this next generation isn't about traveling every couple days, which sort of brings me to the last and most exciting part of all this, is that, you know, in terms of visualizing some of this next generation idea is, you know, part of my thinking at this point is I want to build out the horse trailer to live in, you know, moving that more with climate or long-term living situations, meaning more than, you know, a couple weeks, is that I also want to have a van to do short-term. So I like the idea of base camp and then travel with another vehicle. So there's a lot of really cool ideas around that, including some type of trailer transport hookup, that the transport actually has a living situation in it. The hookup is more of your permanent home, so you can either just travel or pull your home. They have it now where you can pay somebody to travel, to take your tiny home or your RV or your trailer, travel it for you. So I see a lot of opportunity in that, because that would allow you to have a more economically friendly vehicle or motorcycle in which to get around with, but you still had the mobility of a home. So I see a lot of actual opportunity, which is kind of exciting. I just wanted to say a lot of that stuff out loud. The other piece of that is the places that you need to stay. So in terms of thinking of base camp next generation, there's a lot of opportunity for small communities, for farms, for ranches, for people who own property, to really think about hosting people on a temporary base. There's a lot of seasonal opportunity in that. There's a lot of seasonal work opportunity in that. So part of what's exciting to me is, yes, there's the whole nomad thing, which people are just traveling. But if we really want to think community and we want to think down the road, we need to also rethink the physical structures that we've been living in, and maybe there's a better design. I'm thinking that we've only just begun, which is why I love talking about road culture as an idea. So we're going to wrap it up here. I want to say thank you for spending this time with me. If you've got good links, put them below. I think this whole idea of a hybrid next generation is very exciting. We're going to talk more about it, but I thought I would toss that out there. So if you've been living in an RV or tiny house and your wheels are starting to turn, because there's nothing like experience to teach you what you want to do next, it's time to start thinking next generation. And with that, we'll see you next time.